Floyd. I'm the director of the Haddam Historical Society. I'm very, very happy to see everyone here today. I'm very impressed with the crowd we got. I know that probably we could enter each and every one of you, and you would have fascinating stories to tell about our town of Haddam with its villages of Hingham and Haddam Neck. But we're going to start off this series with 6 longtime residents up here at the table. And I am going to ask our moderators, Jack Calhoun and Sue DeCarly, to introduce them. And they will have a series of questions that they will go through. And we have some photographs up here, which hopefully will incite some conversation. And I know that a number of people did bring some historic photographs that are on the back table. So I guess feel free to go up and look at those. We also have some refreshments in the rear, so please help yourself to those. And again, thank you very much for coming out, because I think they're going to have some great stories to tell us. Can you hear me? Do I need this?
Here's the mic.
First of all, I think we should have had...
Use the mic.
One man, one mic.
Use the mic.
Ladies.
Use the mic.
Stories. This is Mabel Clark.
Use the mic, please.
Okay.
You didn't say please.
Oh, that's it.
Just answer.
You hear me? Yeah. All right. This is Mabel Clark Knick, Charlotte Clark Stetson, Rosie Kuchyt Driscoll. And Jack's going to introduce the women, the men.
The men are easy. Joe Nosal, I never called him Joe in my life until tonight. His known as Peachy, John Parmelee, and Duane Brookes. And, for one thing, everybody here, I believe, is born in Haddam, whatever. But lifelong residents. What does this picture mean to you, Rosie? Right there. Yeah, that's the old feed store in Hingham Center with the gas pump, which is now the Red Barn.
I remember your brothers.
Rosie, can you tell us where you lived and so forth, where you grew up, where you went to school?
I was born and brought up in Hingham, of course. I lived on Main Street, Hingham. I went to school, high school, Deep River. And I ended up having a job at Frismar.
Can you tell us a little bit about Frismar's while you're there?
At Frismar's at 1942. And I stayed there, I think, too many years. Anyway, I stayed there maybe about 15, 20 years. And from there, I got a job at Pratt & Whitney. And I retired from Pratt & Whitney.
Okay.
What did you do at Frismar's?
Did I do?
What did you do at Frismar's?
We made stencil paper for carbon copies. And so this is what we did. We had a pen. We had to pen these tissues on these pieces of sticks, and they had 8 like little screws on them. And we had to keep up with the machine. And it went through a big tunnel to dry it. And after it was dry, we had to file it. And after it was filed, they packed them and shipped them out.
Can you give the microphone to Peachy for a minute? Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, Peach.
Where else but Hingham?
Dublin section, right?
Dublin, yes.
And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
9 of us.
9.
5 girls, 4 boys.
And you just go through the nicknames, if not the real names? Everybody had a nickname in his family.
Yeah.
Just about.
So, yeah.
Me, Curly, Snowballs.
What is it, Snowball?
Snowball.
That's Steve.
Got to speak in right into the mic.
Yeah, and Step.
Step, yeah. Where'd you go to school? Did you go to the wooden school in Hingham Green?
Yeah.
You did? You had a knee on the floor, didn't you?
Yeah. Trying to go by my ears, right down to the Cutaway Harrow. My father worked down there, and she told my father, he's naughty. Well, spank him if he's naughty. She dragged me up to school, he wailed the hell out of me. Broken a wristwatch, I'll keep the ear another year. That was that.
Tell me about the, working at the soda shop.
I make 7 up there.
This is where JC Products wasn't a part of Oracle's or where Rosse is now. The building's still there by the town garage entrance. And it was a soda shop, bottling company for ginger ale or 7-Up? 7-Up?
What's that?
Did you make some special bottles for somebody working over at Oracle's?
Yeah, the guy I was working with, he went and bought a cognac, not cognac, but gin or some goddamn thing. Where he made soda with his machine, put juice in it, he stopped the machine and put some shots in it. He made a whole case of soda, took it over to the foundry. My father had the old time, you know, drank it. After work, they all come back to him to buy his case of soda. So the boss could figure out why the hell old man wants to eat soda. So anyway, he told him, no, we don't sell it like that. So the next day, he found out about it. That's all.
Can you give the mic to John, please? John, I assume you grew up and went to school? You go to school in Haddam?
No, went to Hickam Union School on a grade, till the 4th grade, we went across the street. And finished the 7th grade year, and then the 8th grade, we went to Middletown, went to Central School. Then I went to trade school after that. So I was brought up on Waterloo Hill, on the road, and had 3 sisters, 1 brother. I've been in Haddam pretty much all my life. And, in fact, I have been all my life, just maybe a month away from vacation or something. It's the most I ever left. So I think I first met Peachy when I went to work for Nelson in 1958. We worked together almost 8 years until I went to work for the state. And my first remembrance of Duane, I think, was not too long after he came home from the service. He was working on a lawnmower down at Jane Hayes'. And I come walking up the sidewalk. And I probably was 10 years old or less, but I can still remember them working on that lawnmower.
Where was that located?
Jane Hayes'.
Oh, Mrs. Hazen's house on Waterloo Hill?
Yeah. We spent a lot of time with both them friends, Duane and Peachy, for years. And I went around Duane's gas station a lot and Haddam. Pretty much.
Mrs. Hazen, I believe, gave us the property for the grammar school and Haddam Meadows, if I'm correct on that. Okay. Great. Yeah.
It's the main's turn, I'm more afraid of this.
Want to know where you grew up? I'm guessing across from the garage.
In Haddam, I've been there all my life, was born, and we lived in Higgins when we first grew floats, and then went to Haddam in 1929, down to Haddam Center. And just common ordinary.
Yeah. At what point did you get the garage? When were you operating that garage across the street?
I kind
It's
of
where the
backed
firehouse
into
is
that
now.
I kind of backed into that. My brother a while, wanted a gas station, wanted to run it, but he wasn't old enough, so I signed the papers, and then he decided he didn't want it. I had the papers. So that's how I got in the gas station. It was at that time, in those years, there was 10 gas stations on Main Street of Haddam, from Walkley Hill to Chester Line. There was 10 gas stations. And he didn't make much money selling gas.
How much was the gas per gallon?
Excuse me?
How much was the gas per gallon, do you remember?
Oh, it was 30 cents for gas and 20-some cents for the regular.
How long did you have it when, the gas station?
How long did you have it?
The gas station?
Well, I think I sold it in, I was there in '56, I know that. And it was around in the late '50s or '60s, yeah.
What other, what trucks rented space there? I remember milk truck, is that right?
Oh, yeah, Charlotte.
Yeah, milk run from the local dairies and so forth?
They hauled the milk from all the farms down this end of the state to New Haven. And they picked it up in cans in those days, now it's all bulk. But you had to lift those cans and then make sure they didn't tip over in the truck. Used to build racks for them, and so they wouldn't tip.
Did you operate the lumber trucks out of there?
Yeah. At the same time, I was hauling lumber for, hauling railroad ties for Main Central and can't think of the other. It was Rosie sawmills, we picked them up. And we hauled slabs of charcoal kilns up. We did a mass border. Railroad lumber for decking for railroad cars and things like that.
Did you load ties from Higginham Center on the railroad, at the railroad station
Yeah.
for the trains and stuff?
Yeah. We loaded ties in every town that had railroad service. Springfield also, Springfield and that.
Did you get a ticket once with that truck? Up in Union at the tail scales, you get a ticket once up there?
Yeah, I did. A little overloaded.
Did your brother help you out with the other truck?
Did he what?
Did he help you out with the other truck?
Yeah.
Yeah, he stopped to see what was going on, so they weighed in for it.
Yeah, the railroad was the back of those tickets, you know. Even though we were hauling their product, they were trying to put the trucks off.
Okay.
Because the trucks were getting very popular back then.
Did you know anything about the charcoal pits up in top of Cedar Lake there, or up at the reservoir?
Well, I didn't know
forest.
much about those.
Yeah, okay. All right.
The CC camps
Yeah.
had that, so I didn't, they had it all in the forest out, and,
I didn't realize that was part of the CC operation.
Yeah.
Those kilns.
They've been done in later years,
down,
like in the 50s or 60s, and Howie Weiss and David Jones worked there.
yeah, that was in, we went in through Chester, Deep River, off into the woods that way.
Yeah, probably.
Jack, do you remember working for Duane one summer?
Yes.
Up in the quarry,
Yeah, we worked up in the quarry one time.
dragging out stone, and we had the old drop,
Yep.
the machine, we used to load the drop, and Duane would dump it into the dump truck.
We were up there by ourselves. I don't know where OSHA was at those times. We rode our bicycles to go to work. Oh, we were. I did help Duane once. I was home on leave. I'll just throw this in. So I get home, I leave, I call him up, I got a few hours, can I get any jobs for me? He says, yeah, over in Hall Stumps over in East Haddam. So I go over to his FA Ford, and I'm hauling stumps, I got a few loads, and the guy asked me to back up in the dump a little further for whatever reason, I don't know. So I put the body up, the stunk got hung up, the body went right over the back, right over the dump. I come home and driving this truck with no body in it. I had to get back in the service. Give the gals a chance.
Right into it.
Also go over something there. I'll usually.
Well, I grew up in Higganum, of course, like so many others here, and Dublin Hill Road. And there were a lot of, next door to me was a Polish family called the Berchelskis. And they had 4 sons and 6 daughters or something. And each one of the boys, again, had a nickname. Poison, Popeye, Babe, and Boots. And to this day, like we all call Peachy, no one calls him Joe, when I see Babe, I say, hey Babe, how you doing? Let's see. I attended Higganum Union School. In 8th grade, I went to the new school. We were the first class there, and we had the first man teacher, Russ Over, and that was really something different. Also, some of my memories of Higganum is down at E.C. Johnson's. Some of the fellas here, including Midge Kuchyt and Frankie Hager, and a lot of them would hang out there, and they'd load up their cars with girls, and they'd take us for ice cream. Else remembers, but I can remember that very, very well. Let's see. I've got a few notes here. I worked at Frizzell's, or Frismeyer's rather, when I was 16. It was a real sweatshop.
That's
Frismeyer's. I remember getting 75 cents an hour, and I thought that was really gold. And I think every woman that, a lot of women, not every woman, a lot of women worked at Frismeyer's, and that was their only job, and a lot of them walked there, from what I remember. Let's see. What else you want to know, Jack?
Did you ever get in any trouble, Charlotte?
No, Charlotte never got in.
You never pulled any pranks?
No. Except one time Jack's brother, Hazen, who's now deceased, on Halloween a bunch of us would go out, and he always said that we pushed a toilet over with my uncle in it. But I think that was, on Halloween, I think that was just a story that Hazen came up with. But we used to do a lot of crazy stuff. I can't remember what, because maybe I don't want to remember.
Was there 2 businesses when you girls were there down at,
Yes.
what was the other business?
It's a Frizzell manufacturer.
And what was the other business that was in the same building?
They did dyeing for the Full Rush Company.
For the Full Rush Company?
Yeah.
And you dyed cotton or something like that?
And they what?
I don't know, what did you dye?
The material that they were using for their products.
Okay, all right. You had a blue and a red. The prick used to be either blue or red. Whatever the dye was of the day.
So what was
The
that?
prick.
The pricks.
The prick would always be the same color as the dye.
Yes.
Yeah, it would all be either blue or red. Go along with the dye.
When the Frizzell, that was called Frizzell Fabric, the Frizzell Company. Mr. Frizzell was 3 brothers going there. The dye house, they called it the dye house.
The dye house.
Yeah. But what I wanted to say too, Jack, is I remember Higganum Center.
Right?
In the center we had everything. we didn't have to worry about going to little town. We had a grocery store, a liquor, a tavern, a post office, a barber shop, ice cream shop. And I remember Olson's stores, and they always used to have a lot of penny candy in there. And I used to like to go in, and for one thing, I used to like to have Henry Webb wait on me, because he'd always give me extra. And when you think about it, they had everything in that store, even boots and rubbers and everything.
Stationery.
Everything they had. But like I said, we had locally, we had everything right down in the center.
Did you ever go in the village barn, Rosie?
Well.
I just want to add something to
I know
the
you've been
village
in
barn. I never was in there. But did Mighty Waters drive his horse right through the village barn one time?
Yeah, I think you
I
got on the
think
step.
that
I
was-
don't know if you got inside.
Oh, okay, got on the step anyhow.
I don't know if you got in the door. Mabel, you want to tell us a little bit about growing up in Hingham, perhaps?
Remember too much. Yeah.
Sure, just tell us where you live, your sisters and so forth. I think you worked at Estes store, didn't you? Estes?
You worked at
Frizzell.
Oh, she worked at Frizzell.
I forget a lot. I grew up in Immokalee Hill Road. I can't think of much of anything.
How about Spider? Was that, what was he to
What
you?
about swimming?
That was my brother.
Your
What
brother,
about
yeah.
swimming on the river? You guys go swimming on the river?
Oh yeah, we used to swim in the river.
Yeah.
And they don't do it no more.
And dad fishing and
And
grandpa?
oh, well, we used to go on an island and break branches and smoke it.
You and Mary Ruth? How about some other things you and Mary Ruth?
Oh, she was teaching me how to ski, and I almost broke my neck. I got in the air, the ski stuck in the sand.
Down Parmelee Road?
Down at Parmelee, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sledding?
Yeah.
And what about?
Oh, and the apples barrel. They used to make cider down there, and what was his, Dr. Gisler always said a song to me that I used to, what the heck did they call cider?
What was
When
it?
it got
Hard cider.
come to me in the hospital about the hard cider I used to drink. I never drank it.
What about old Mr. Lackshaw? Remember you told me you remember the old Mr. Lackshaw?
The who?
The old Mr. Lackshaw? Lackshore?
Yeah.
Lackshore.
Oh my God, yeah, old Mr. Lecture and his wife, they used to sit on the stone up there, and Ines and I used to go by, and whoever got the biggest leaf got the most candy. Why do I not remember some stuff?
How about, did you get stuck in the river? Because you weren't supposed to be in the river.
Do that.
You got stuck in the river, you stole a boat from,
Borrowed the boat.
Stole the boat down at the river, and we went up the river, and we got into an eddy up there in back of the White Birch. We had a job getting out of it. And then when we finally got out of there, and I told Dad, I wouldn't tell Mom, she would give us a good licking. And I told Dad, oh, he almost had a heart attack. He said, if we had gotten in there, that Eddie would have put us down and they never found us. Well, the devil didn't want us.
and what happened out, she didn't learn.
Oh, the oars were gone, and
The locks, the door locks.
the oarlocks were gone, everything was gone, just the boat. It didn't steal that. I don't know who's boat.
And everybody here's been pretty nice calling her Miss Tibbles. But I never heard her called Miss Tibbles before.
Oh, she was a
Not
mean
by
old
anybody.
witch.
No, it was old lady.
Old lady Timmels. Witch.
You don't think she was mean, John?
I spent 2 years in her class, so I got used to her.
Well, there's something yesterday, and he says, he was one of her classmates. His mother would make some kind of history for her. So she was always very nice and willing. And I never got her back, because my mother would make the pastries for her.
I didn't want it.
I don't think many people did.
What about places to go dancing in town?
That's gone, it was a silver ball.
Silver Ball was way down in lower into Haddam.
The road is there now. Remember that?
But they had square dances up the Grange
Oh,
Hall.
no, we had it. We used to have movies in the town,
The
the
Grange.
Grange Hall.
we used to have the dances out at St. James.
The Grange is still left of those buildings. That's Olson's store being torn down. It's a good sized
Yeah,
store.
and that's the Village Barn.
Village Barn
Yeah.
and,
See.
And they chose to hunt a cat.
After my night out.
Good night out.
That's why
How about memories of the jail? How about memories of the jail?
What's that?
Memories of the jail, I'd love to hear.
That's Bill Lehman, right.
Bill Maynard, it's hard to see.
Yeah.
He's in the white shirt, but it's hard to see. The screen's
I used to love to listen to my father tell stories about pranks that he did when he was a kid. But one time when the grain was very active, a bunch of the guys got together and they went down, they jacked up the cars, and they put a log underneath the rear axle, and when the people came out to go, they didn't go anywhere because they lifted the wheels just far enough off the ground.
Barn, you mean, from Barney?
Yeah. I'm sure that Duane's got some pranks that he used to play.
Halloween. We'll talk a little more about 3 Oaks or 15 Maples.
Oh, that's something.
Anybody?
Oh, I don't.
Come on, girls, I know you want
That's
that. Peachy? Okay.
Charlotte, the three Oaks.
3 Oaks.
I can tell you about 15 Maples. I got out of the Army. Helped my brother and Callaway with some lumber. The little bit over East Haddam, when we come back, they stopped for beer. And 15 Maples, well, I forget his name, Merchak. Can't have a beer. What do you mean you can't have a beer? I was too young. Why did you tell the Army? He's older now. Oh, you just tell someone no beer. So I never did get a beer. Hell, I was 23 years old then. No beer. 3 Oaks is a wild place. It sure is a wild place. We always go out there Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Then we end up late, you were middle on, finish the night. One night, the World Series started. 1 o'clock in the morning, me and Ralph decided to go to Boston, playoff, Boston and Cleveland. Got in the car, drove to Boston. Got up there, stood in line 4 o'clock in the morning till, I don't know what time it was after. So we got about 4 feet from the gate, and they said, sold out. So we ended up coming back home again.
Didn't they have shows, they had a stage at Trios, didn't they have shows through there?
Oh, yeah.
They had a live band.
Live band,
Yeah, live band. Mamas, something.
tame deer out back.
Yeah. Yeah, it had to, somebody butchered it. So what else?
Duane, where did you go to school? Where did you go to grammar school, Duane Brookes? Where did you go to grammar school?
The old school across from Haddam Library. Went first 4 grades there. There became a bigger center.
Okay, so you ended up going to the union school eventually? You ended up getting to the union school?
When you got, after 5th grade, you went up to union school?
Okay. Do you know when they closed that school down?
1949, 48.
No, the one in
Oh, down
Haddam
here,
Center.
I don't know that.
Oh, in Haddam Center?
Yeah.
It's closed during the war.
During the war, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, my mother told me, I was in the Navy then, and she wrote and told me when they were shutting it down. That was part of an era.
Because we were trying to find pictures of each one of you in your classes. We could not find you, and my mother said the other day that she thought you went to that school.
Yeah. I can't hear very well. So
That's okay.
Where were you in the Navy? World War II, you ended up in the Navy, right? World War II? Whereabouts you ended up?
In the Southern Pacific. We ended up there with the Philippines and Okinawa and Japan, so.
What were you on?
I was on a minesweeper.
Okay.
We swept the mines for every invasion. That left us a week to 10 days. We were all by ourselves. We were in there sweeping for the invasion force.
Oh, prior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sweep all the mines out. And so it was interesting.
Must have been Pucker Factory
Yeah, it was
somewhere.
interesting duty. We had a lot of fun too.
Peachy, you want to talk about a little bit about World War II?
Gino Buzzini was doing that.
What do you want to know?
Well, I know you're in the Army.
What else?
I know you landed at Omaha.
Huh?
You landed at Omaha Beach, didn't you, a couple of days after the initial landings?
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well, it was supposed to be the first landing, but there were so many troops waiting to get on the beach. And the beach wasn't wide enough for everybody to come, you know. Because they had 10-inch I-beams sticking out of the sand, staggered so no boat could go near. So when we went, they took us 5 days after the invasion. In this landing craft, we went and landed on Omaha Beach. In the water, when we got off the landing ship, we had a swim line to hit land. But you couldn't get near the shore because the I-beam sticking out, you know. There was guys still floating around in the water yet. But the full big pack you have on weighs about 60, 70 pounds. And they got to the guy that holds them up. They still float, you know. So then we got to the beach and we had to pick up mines. That was one of our jobs. So we picked about 300-400 mines a day to make a wider beachhead. So then we started from there up to the first town, Carrington, I guess. But the front was only 18 miles in shore. So that's all it's coming out.
You went all the way to Berlin, you told me? You got wounded at least once, I know of.
Yeah, twice.
Twice?
I didn't get no Purple Heart. I refused it. Because they didn't get a Purple Heart, they sent home to the sisters that got wounded. So I didn't want my sisters to know anything about it. So I didn't do it.
How did you get wounded? At least one time you told me that something came in from the sky.
Yeah, then buzz bombs.
Buzz bomb, get by a B-1 buzz bomb.
B-1 rocket buzz.
Rocket, German rocket.
It's 1,000 pounds of TNT.
It landed somewhere near us, for sure.
It was a rainy day, we had raincoats on, and you could hear it, so like a helicopter coming out. Then it shuts off, and it comes down like a bomb. You don't see it. So you don't know where to land, but it's so landed close to our platoon, and it blew us all apart. So it's about 25, 30 feet away, knocked us in the lots and everywhere. My raincoat was all like a sieve, all holes, and metal in the bottom, little bits of metal.
Metal, full of holes.
Hey, Jack, he was in the Battle of the Bulge.
Yeah. Yeah, so he 5 campaigns.
5 campaigns.
Battle of the Bulge. And reached to Berlin. They were putting us into Berlin right away. Russia had to clean it off first. Because we figured if we get it to Berlin, well, they had a beer factory there.
A beer factory?
Yeah. So we all figured how we get through and get it there. Russia had it all cleaned up.
Rosie, what was it like at home during World War II? You had a couple of years during World War II. I don't know, about rationing, anything like that, Rose?
Talking to you.
Yeah. Can you tell us what it was like being in World War II, being at home during World War II? I don't know if there was rationing of gas or food or any of that stuff. Okay.
It's comfortable.
How many remember when the war ended? I remember as a kid, I must have been 10 or 11, going down where the state garage and the firehouse now, and everyone was there in town blowing horns. And does anyone else remember that here? Oh, good. I'm not making it up. And one thing related to the war, so to speak, when it was Memorial Day, all of us in school, we had to march and wear white dresses, and we carried flowers, I think, to put on the graves. That I remember too. Anyone else know anything more about that? All right, here. And we want to give it to Duane now, I guess. Charlotte Clark.
Who was Charlie Barker? Who was Charlie Barker?
I don't know. No,
Walter Barker. His father was a Civil War drummer, was that?
Yeah.
Walter,
I
was
think
it?
he was,
I think his father was. I'm not sure.
anyway, I remember that stopping there, you know, around there.
have a shorter.
Okay, I have a few questions. I'm going to go person to person.
Okay.
Is this working? Now it's working. All right, so 1962 was a huge year in the town of Haddam. We celebrated its 300th anniversary. And I don't recall, but I've been told that pretty much everybody in town participated in one way or another. Do you remember 1962? And what did you do? Were you in the beard contest?
I was saying, what?
The beard contest?
No.
No? Okay, well, what?
I never drank there.
Oh. Not the beard contest, the beard contest. So tell us a little bit about 1962 and the celebration for the tercentenary.
Oh, boy. They had a week of celebrations, and they sold wooden money, you know, yeah, little wooden things, hickory or something like that. And they had, I raised a beard for that.
You did? Okay.
Yeah, there was nothing that I remember. I remember the parade, and it was very nice. And my brother and my father participated a lot more than I did.
Was your father first selectman at the time?
Yes, yeah. Yep. They were the politicians of the family. It went off pretty smooth. There was not any problems that I know of. And there was a lot of volunteers that they worked hard and just made it go well.
People are still talking about it.
Yeah.
How about you, Mr. Parmelee? Do you remember 1962?
Yeah, I remember quite a bit about it. I worked with my brother-in-law and my father-in-law. We built a beer tent down there. And they had, I think it was Budweiser Company, came with a couple of trucks, and they set up all the beer taps. And at the end of the parade, there was a lot of thirsty firemen and drunken. They went through a lot of beer, I remember that. And, they had during the week, they had a nice stage set up, and Charlie Church, for one, I think his wife, they kind of did a jig up there and stuff, you know, and old-time dance type things. And they had kind of a pageant thing that was put on one or two nights that I remember. The parade was tremendous. It was from Higgin Center down to Haddam Green, and then went down to the Meadows. And an awful lot of fire departments and drum corps. You're right, everybody from town kind of dressed up. I remember Ralph Ely Sr. had a real nice beard, and kind of reddish. And Whit Brooks had a real full beard. And he was dressed up in, I think, like buckskins and carried an old gun. And I think he had a coonskin cap, if I remember right.
He won also. Yeah, he did win, yeah.
I remember Charlie Church being in a stovepipe hat like Abraham Lincoln type thing. That might have even been in the play that they did down at the Meadows. And Weber Modine, I believe, won the contest with the beard. He had a bright red beard. And Ernie Gremlin was another one who was in the beard contest. They had at least 6 or 7 guys that really had a full heavy beard. I pretty much worked at the Meadows. I remember we were building the beer tent, and my brother-in-law and I, Roy Hyatt, went to Lotus Lumber to get some lumber to build the beer tent. And coming back, he had a roof rack where you put everything up on top of the truck. We come by Phil Arnold's store, and I says, "Hey, wait a minute, I want to get a pack of cigarettes." So he kind of slammed the brakes on it. Every 2x4 ended up on the hood of the truck. It never broke the windshield, and everything ended up in the road. He wasn't too happy with it. I smoked, I guess, from the time I was 12 or 13 until I was 30. Finally gave up at 30 years old. I noticed an oxen here with the picture of Bill Maynard before. And I remember Al Octavia telling me, over at Little City Campsite, that he had oxen, Harley Peck had oxen, which is where Mickey Hyatt has his place out there in Canada Hill. Bill Maynard owned that later on. And Priest, where Peachy lives now, Rob Priest, Harley Peck, and Octavia each had oxen. They'd taken each one of the fairs, and he said that they would walk them to Haddam that fair on a Friday and bring them back like either, I guess, on Sunday, because they usually had the oxen on Saturday. They'd walk them to Haddam that fair, they'd walk them to Chester Fair, and they'd walk them to Durham Fair. And when they went to Hamburg Fair, he said that was the only time they loaded them on a truck. Rob had a truck. He'd load the oxen on a truck and they'd take them to Hamburg Fair. But it's hard to believe that they would walk them to Haddam that fair. Durham Fair, I didn't see. I mean, they all lived in one city, so it wasn't too far to Durham, but they walked them to each one of them fairs. I guess horse and oxen were really big back in them days. So.
Now, tell them about Duane 75 ice cream.
Oh, Charlie always liked the story about Duane giving me $100 bill to go up to Phil Arnold's and get a couple ice creams. Phil was supposedly mostly blind, you know. So I go up there and of course he gave me $1 bill besides. So I go up there and Phil gives me like 3 ice creams and I put the $100 bill on the counter. I can't cash it. He noticed right away that it wasn't a $1 bill. Because there was always somebody clowning around, or there were quite a few guys hanging around there. It's like the hardware store today, you know, the guys go to the hardware store years ago. The guys from Haddam went to Duane's. And I walked that sidewalk a good many times from Walker Hill down the lower end of Haddam, either going to Duane's gas station, and my cousin Charlie that lived next to the county home. And we spent a lot of time at the county home because they had swings and seesaws and stuff like that, and we'll get his other kids there to meet with. So, I don't know, Peachy always wants to hand me this microphone.
All right, who wants to talk about some flooding? Anybody remember flooding? Okay, tell us about some of the disasters.
Which one?
All of them.
Speak up, fix it.
Okay, talk right into it.
Okay. To the flood?
36.
Yeah. Well, Haven Center was pretty well flooded. And the Shays, they didn't want to move out of the store.
Shea store?
Shea store. Water was all around there, you know. They wanted to stay right there. The water was getting higher all the time. So we finally carried him out of the store and took him home. So then we went over home and we got the trees rolled down and rolled up in the trees. And back in the center again, guys that used to be Eric Peterson and them, they used to ride a boat. And he got that boat tipped over, the water washed him down, they caught him to the bridge like they did. So then a couple of guys went down and hauled them out. So then we come home, and where the first bridge is, not from the front center, the first bridge, the second bridge, the third bridge, used to be a wall right along there. That all came in, or we were walking.
While you were walking, we caved in, sir.
And the water was, washing outside. Christmas. So then, some guys come Midland way, they said that the road was going up. We wanted them underneath the concrete, ripped the road up.
Up by Seven Falls, yeah. Yeah, the concrete was all raised up in the air and dropped. Where the wall collapses, right from the bridge going over to Depot, Dublin Hill, on the right there. I can tell you a quick story about Shay's store. My brother used to.
Yeah, take it like.
My brother. The guys used to hang around on Friday nights next to Hager's store. On the block there was, well, my day was Esther Johnson's, barber shop, Camo's, and then Higgin Center Meat Market, Tattashini's package store. And it's still there, it's a wall with I think there's a little pipe on the top where it used to be. And on Friday night, the guys used to hang around down there and drink beer, and there was always a fireball right over the wall with all the cardboard and stuff from the store and everything. And my brother came by with his lawnmower, and he mowed lawns in Dublin and stuff. And they're teasing him, and they said, "Hey, why don't you mow John Shay's lawn after dark tonight?" He said, "What do you give me?" He got $5. $5 is a lot of money. Brother goes home, gets the flashlight, takes it to the lawnmower, goes mows his lawn, comes right back about 10 o'clock when the spider of the place gets his $5 and goes up the hill. Tell us a little more about Higgin Center, all the stores there, so.
I can't say too much because there was, in the center, there was Walter Clark's, and there were Olson's, and then I think it was a First National, if I remember correctly, before it was, this is really when I was young. And the post office was next door. And then the First National in the corner, and then eventually Joe Rodnick, I think, opened a store. So at one point we had 3 grocery stores. Hager's Meat Market, Olson's, well maybe 4 then, Olson's and Walter Clark. What did Walter Clark sell? Does anyone remember what Walter Clark sold? He sold everything too. And, but, I just lost it here a minute. About Higgin Center stores. The one thing I remember about Olson's, they had these big bins and they had cookies. And you could, help yourself to cookies, and they had store cheese, and they had a string from the roof, not the roof, the ceiling or whatever. And they also never had a cash register. You wrote everything down on a piece of paper and then charged it. They must have had a cash register to give you change. And then, of course, when Hager's moved over to where that was a big deal, because that was like a supermarket for Higgin. What else?
I didn't know you could help yourself to cookies.
Pay for it. Oh, one thing I just want to say, maybe some of the guys, Charlie Parmelee or someone else, we should talk about the Higgies baseball team. Now, Robbie Baroni lived across the street, and I was a kid, and Connie Berchelski was a kid. And he'd take us to baseball games out of town. And if we won, he had a little coop, and he had made a little boarding bag for us to sit. If the Higgies won, he blew the horn all the way home. I mean, coming up Dublin, everyone knew that Higgies had won because the horn was blown. But maybe someone else should talk about the baseball team. That's all I can tell you. Charlotte Parmelee or some other, Midge Kulak would play baseball.
You want to talk about the ball team, Ben?
No.
Sure.
He was a catcher.
About the apple orchards.
I lived next door to Latshaw, but I never actually worked for Latshaw. He didn't really want us on his property. He just pretty private guy, actually. He didn't want you walking through the yard. There's a few kids in town that picked apples there. Jimmy Hyatt worked there, maintaining lawns and stuff, and John DeGrelli worked there at one time. Mostly working, not so much on apples, mostly around the property. But I did pick apples for Valera, and I used to help Renzi pick up the brush after they trimmed the trees. They piled the brush in the center of the row, and Renzi had a John Deere tractor with a loader on it. He'd push the brush down the row for quite a ways until he made a big pile, you know. And they just let it rot there. It was a good place to go rabbit hunting later on. That's something we don't have much anymore, is brush piles for the rabbits and things that I did, you know. But, they had quite an orchard there. They had three main orchards. And Mr. Valera did most of the pruning, and he did most of the picking. And when they were really in the bulk of the harvest, they'd have Jamaicans. They'd have 8 or 10 Jamaicans that Renzi had to go up to Bradley Field every day and pick them up and bring them back at night. But a Jamaican could pick, as I remember, like 120 boxes of apples a day. They were big, long, lanky men, and they could reach. And, I remember picking at least 120 boxes a day. At night, Renzi would come. They had an old Studebaker truck with a hydraulic gate on the back, and we put the apples on there, raise them up, load them in the truck, and take them down and put them in the storage. There was a storage by Harry Nelson's house. Cold storage just built in the bank there, made out of cement, and they keep them there for a while until they had room in the cooler down by the barn. Move them down there and sort them out, pick them over. Ed Renzi's brother was the main guy for picking over the apples. He spent most of the time selling the apples there and picking them over. And on weekends, they were real busy making cider. I can remember people coming in and asking Renzi, how do you clean the apples? How do you get the worms out? Oh, there's a thing up there in the top that separates the worms. Today you can't pick crops off the ground. You got next to all apples that come off the tree. Years ago, they picked up all kinds of apples and stuff. They had quite an operation there. Mr. Valera had chickens. They sold eggs. I think he took the eggs to New Haven in the morning. And he always had a big garden, a lot of butternut squash, pumpkins. They did sell corn. They had the garden was right across from their main house up there. I can remember going in the chicken house. I'd be there with Renzi a lot of times at night, and he'd feed the chickens. And if you went in the chicken house and say there was 300 chickens in the barn there, once in a while I'd make a loud whistle, and the chickens automatically think it's a hawk, and they all go to one corner. If you do it a couple of times, they'll smother themselves, they'll kill themselves. You give any kind of a screech, and it's just natural for them to know that a hawk is there, and they'll all crowd on top of each other. I didn't pull that joke too many times, but I did pull it a couple of times.
Can you hand it, Mike? I got to ask Duane a question or two.
Glad to get rid of it.
Duane had a pretty good-sized construction company, excavations and so forth. You built the highway for the power plant, East Haddam.
Yeah, I did.
Was that 67 or so? 68, 65?
That was the 60s. 62, 3, I think. I think it was 63, or it was either 62 to 63, or 63 to 64.
I assume you had to build it strong enough to get that reactor down that road. I remember that was a big...
Yeah. They put special plates down all along the state road. When they got the new road I built, they just took off right down through it. They didn't have any failures anyway.
You bought the coal and oil business from your uncle, Uncle Whit?
Yeah, 1956.
That was located down by the railroad station. You used to get coal off the trains and so forth.
We used to unload. '89 was when the banks closed down all the, they called in all the loans and everything else, you know? And, that's when I bought, the pit in, Deep River, when
Oh, okay.
the net four started that up.
Did a good job with Beaver Meadow too. You told me Beaver
You
Meadow.
built Beaver Meadow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, don't leave
I
them.
remember we was plowing over the kid on the street there. We couldn't plow any further because the snow was coming over the truck.
Yeah, yeah. I did quite a few roads in the past. All towns around. Out of town, I built on the Avon and all. I just pretty much gave it up after '89.
Well, that was a pretty good sized business down there running that quarry.
Yeah.
And tell us a little about the quarry up and back here at the same time, this type of stone and so forth.
And Haddam.
It had the quarry.
Quarry where the stone came from the jail.
Yeah.
The jail and then the stone house, just, we lived next door to the stone house, was where I brought up. And upstairs there was one little narrow room with a bed and a chair. And that was what the workers had. They needed housing like that. You could go up there and rent a room and just.
That's in the stone house.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if they've torn them out now, or probably have.
What do they call that stone that's out, that granite?
It's a granite and nist. It's a GNESI, something like that. I think they pronounce it nist, but it's very clear, it's straight grain, and you gotta mine it from north to south. Then mine the back the other way, it will not split well coming from the south to the north.
Does it have something to do with magnetic north?
The way it was put there, I guess. The old timers told me that when I was there. That's how I learned it. But what I didn't know, they put an N on every big stone that come out of the quarry, so they know what the north end was and go from there. I couldn't figure out why the letter N was stamped in a lot of the big stone. And then I happen to remember that's what they told me.
Is that called Haddam Gray? Is that called Haddam Gray?
Haddam Blue.
Haddam Blue?
Yeah.
Okay, Haddam Blue.
There is a gray streak in it though, in one spot, and it's a different stone. It's a softer stone, the gray. The blue is still.
Is the Brainerd Academy made out of that stone? The old town hall?
Excuse me?
Haddam Academy there, but the old town hall.
Yeah, the old town hall, yeah.
Same stone. And then the courthouse, is that also the same?
Courthouse is too.
Yeah. Yeah. The fire in 1929, I think the fire was burned down. I remember a little kid going up there and seeing the fire the next day.
The courthouse, right? The courthouse.
Yeah.
Hey, John, could you tell us a little bit about the Peter Birch?
Yeah, I guess you probably know so much about it when it was rebuilt and that.
Peter Birch is the old original
The
fire
original
truck.
fire truck they got in 1930. It was actually ordered for Georgetown, Connecticut, which was down by Brooklyn. And I'm not sure exactly what happened, but apparently Wilton or Georgetown somehow ordered 2 trucks or something, and they ended up getting, I think, like a Seagraves or whatever, and the Peter Birch was being built for Georgetown, and probably through the salesman, Haddam ended up buying it. And I I think probably Carly Chapel was one of the ones that went down and picked it up. They went to Georgetown, picked it up and brought it back to Higgins. And it was Higgins' real first truck. The old gray mare was probably built before they got to Peter Perch. I'm not sure about that, but Oliver Ryan kind of built the old gray mare. And one thing about the Peter Perch, for a grass fire, you could drive it and have the pumping gear. Later on, on the most of the trucks, you couldn't drive a truck and have it in gear and spraying water, but with the Peter Perch, you could. The way it was set up, you could have the power take off your gear and go on and run all your pumps. So it was a great truck for grass fires. And I remember Ray Allen driving it to fires with, they had a windshield on it later on. I've got some pictures that I brought up there on the table. Ray Allen used to drive it. He had a big, heavy army coat that he put on in the wintertime, and I guess there was times when they almost had to lift him out of the seat when he got to the fire because he'd be so cold. It wasn't something you want to leave Higgins and drive down to Tylerville on a cold day because it was an open air cab, so it was pretty cold. But right on the back, you hold the bar. Yeah, hold your hands on the bar. You have to hang on. In the early 60s, my father-in-law bought it from the fire department, and he had it up in his garage. Larry Connie brought it up with his wrecker, and they hooked a chain on each side of the bumper. They got going up Brainerd Hill, about by Joey Mayor's house. My father-in-law was following him. He had like probably a 58 Pontiac, and Bobby Cagle was with my father-in-law, following him up the hill. The bumper let go. The brackets, it had cast steel brackets. The brackets let go, and the fire truck headed down the hill from Joey Mayor's house. So my father-in-law took it, run his Pontiac into it. It took out the whole front of the car, the grill, the fenders, and everything. It took Larry, I think, about 4 months to put that car back together to get it going for Bill. Bill told him before they started out, he said, maybe we better put a safety chain on there. Larry said, no, it'll be all right. He said, they got going up behind the hill and they went all right, let go. Young Larry was with his father going up the hill. He was pretty young. I don't think he stopped here today. Larry knew a little, young Larry would know a little bit about the ride up the hill when that thing let go. But I told him to stop by today because he'd be interested in listening to Peachy and Duane and the girls. Anyway, after my father-in-law bought it, it was, we stripped it down and painted it up in his garage. And a lot of the pieces were missing, and my father-in-law kept after people that had them and got all the pieces back together. The 2 water tanks were missing. They were solid copper. They still are solid copper. And Weber Modine had taken them off and was going to use them for oil tanks in his new house. My father-in-law got them back, put them on. And after he died, it sat in my mother-in-law's garage for probably 4 or 5 years. And she sold it to the town for $1,000. A few firemen got interested in it and wanted to buy it for the fire department. So she sold it to the fire department. And we brought it out in my garage, and 4 or 5 of us worked on it, got it all cleaned up. We spent a lot of time buffing the nickel and the chrome. And Carlson that had the buffing shop down in Tylerville, they took a lot of the stuff down there and buffed it. And the truck went, when we got it all cleaned up, ready to go, we put new tires on, which I bought over at Falcone's in Route 2 in Norwich. And we took it over to Kaufman's and I want to say Preston, but it's Preston.
George City.
Yeah, it's the backside of George City. Kaufman painted it, and I collected a lot of pictures from different people in town. Stevie Nosal had a lot, Jake Chappell, and Fred Brooks' daughter. She was a Brooks, lived up by Charlotte.
Who was this? Oh, Scoville?
Fred.
Brooks. The woman.
Elizabeth
Scoville.
Scoville.
Okay.
She gave a lot of pictures?
She had some pictures from her father. Her father was Ron?
No. Her father was Rob.
Rob Brooks, who I think was the first fire chief.
He was.
And from the pictures, we could determine what a lot of the gold leaf on the truck was. You know, it showed the front fenders and it showed different stuff. And I took all that information to Kaufman. They had somebody that did the gold leaf. Kaufman was an old-time company. They did horse and buggy stuff, and they did a lot of gold leaf work years ago. And the guy had all the stencils. He had hundreds of stencils that he could take them stencils to match them to what we had on the Peter Perch in the pitch pond. And they gave us a price to paint the truck. It was like $2,000, including the gold leaf, I think. It wasn't a lot. It's not a lot of money in today's world, that's for sure. We paid a lot more than that just for the gold leaf. So we sent it over there to be painted in gold leaf, and as we looked at the pictures over time, some of the pictures, we'd find more gold leaf that we didn't know was there, so we take it back and tell the guy, oh, we have this gold leaf here. Wait a minute, we can only do so much gold leaf. He says, you can't keep adding to the gold leaf. So we did pretty good though, with the amount of gold leaf that they put on it and the paint job they put on it. The paint stood up wonderful. Cousin Charlie put it on the trailer, took it over there when it was done. He put it on the trailer and brought it back. And, the first time we used it was, we wasn't quite done working on it, but we rushed to get it done. We used it for Vic Stinelli's funeral. We took him from a Catholic church out to Birth Cemetery. That was the first time it got used after it was rebuilt. After that, we went to quite a few parades, and always been a Memorial Day. We've had to put bearings in it a couple of times. It's got lead bearings, and the bearings are gone a couple of times. The crankshaft gets a little bit out of round. It wears the bearings. So that's kind of the story of the Peter Perch.
Hey, Rosie, can you tell us about boning shed and so forth at your house or wherever with Lefty? Boning shad?
Yeah.
About boning shad, Lefty was a pretty good boner.
My son would go and collect and net the shad, and my husband would bone the shad, and then ship to New York, and then come from New York, they'd come and pick up the shad, and this is what they did during shad season. And, they also would sell to others too.
Did Lefty learn how to bone from Bill, or on his own, or what?
He did on his own.
On his own.
I don't know how much he had practice with, but he finally got it the way he wanted it, and was able to do it.
How did you ship? Where did you ship from? Your house? Or
Yeah.
right out of the house?
They come and pick up.
You can't show me the advantage of that. They're standing up. Maybe she knows.
Yeah.
They enjoyed doing it. My son really liked to go after them. I used to say, Anthony, you have your other job to do. I said, you better not stay out late at night getting these fish and everything like that. He said, but Mom, he said, it's something I really enjoy. And he said, it doesn't last that long.
Son Anthony is better known as Doc. You talk about any fires, any old fires or anything?
Oh, yeah, they used to plank a lot of the shad on Friday night and have good times.
Any of the old fires that you went to Peachy years ago? 50 Maples?
15 Maples would have been later.
I know. That's the shot. All of it. But shad. We see a lot of shad.
And he would take some of the shad down to Spencer. And then when he got a lot of shad and whatever like that, he would also take it down to Spencer's
Shad
shad shack. Yeah. And then they'd bone some, plus they would send some to New York.
I know Louis Nosal worked with, I think it was Bill Maynard, Was he hauling with Bill Maynard for shad right after the war? He made quite a bit of money.
We went with Spencer, that's our quick.
Okay.
Sure.
Speak up.
We used to get to, all the state, 58 boxes. A day. There's a lot of shit, but like.
10 shad boxes, probably 100 pounds in a box, right?
Yep.
And of course, they made the money out of shad row.
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah, that's where the money was,
You
on
mean,
shad row.
you would take the shed when he got to the market there, sell them, and then take something built on up the grass cradle and sell it.
Anybody have any questions from the audience they want to ask?
Mr. Brooks might know, remember more, Shad Shack. Can you tell us about the Sheriff Shack? Excuse me, the Sheriff Shack.
Sheriff Shack, yeah.
So, Mr. Brooks, the question is the sheriff shack that used to be down in the meadows, is that correct? Can you tell us anything about it, or the sheriffs that, you know, were there?
Sheriff Thompson had it built,
Oh, yeah.
and they had socials down there. And when I was a kid, they had different things you'd go to, and one of them that was impressed me, the guy, he could swim on his back and read a newspaper out there. Float around, and another guy played horn, and they would just, it was used for different things. You'd go have a picnic there or anything else. And it got, the state took it over, I guess, and then they tore it down for insurance reasons. That's all I know about it.
Located where the boat launch is.
Yeah, boat launch is right side.
Anybody else? Questions?
Jack. Jail.
The jail? Do you remember, oh, the little jail, the lockup. So there used to be a little lockup in the center of Hingham, right where the pharmacy, or right next to where the pharmacy is now. Does anybody remember that?
Yeah, I do. I didn't use it much.
You were never in it?
No.
How about you, Mr. Nosal? Do you remember the little lockup, the jug?
Take kids and lock them up in there. I don't remember the old timers being locked up in there. They get drunk or something, they get locked up, who locked them up, I don't know. Who's the sheriff?
Who's
Is
the
it
sheriff?
Sheriff Duane?
Sheriff Thompson?
Who's the sheriff for the little
They
jail?
had to lock up and take it.
Sheriff of the jail.
No, it wasn't sure.
I mean, Haddam, yeah, well, that was just, they never put anybody in overnight, I don't think.
Ferguson? Ferguson.
It was pretty chilly if they
Is
did.
that Ferguson?
Ferguson was the Haddam jail,
Yeah,
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 in the 50s,
yeah,
up until the 50s. I delivered papers to Ferguson.
And did he do the little jail in the center?
I don't know.
No.
No.
And constables, and I don't know if like Tracy Neff would get involved in any of that. Most of it was, I understand, was mostly drunks. So.
So who is sweet or sweet Annie?
Yes.
Is it sweet or sweet?
Wait a minute here, there's a story on the floor that maybe Jack spent the night.
That's
a time in jail in town.
Sweet Annie and Reese.
Was it Sweet Annie or Sweet Annie because she drank? Sweet because she drank cheap booze, right?
Supposed to be drunk there.
Yeah, Rufus Clark, was Rufus Clark?
On the wagon and the horse, take me home, Don. They go to sleep in the wagon, horse take me right home. I'm ready to go.
Way up in, foot near where Kathy Brunson was.
So, but what was it? Was it Swede Annie or sweet?
Sweet.
Sweet.
I think so.
Sweet, because she drank
Sweet.
sweet booze.
Okay. That's what I always thought, the sweet
And look for those, it's not a cow, what is that animal that has the horns?
Give the microphone.
Give the microphone.
Is that ox?
Yeah.
That's what they,
You should tell that, Duane should tell that, bet everyone did hear it.
No, give Duane the microphone, we didn't hear that.
I don't know, is this thing on?
Yes.
There it goes.
Whatever you were just talking about, they said it was a pretty good story, I didn't catch it.
Well, you were talking about, he had a nickname for Remus, and when he went by Higgins School, if you called him that nickname, he
Yeah.
would bat you with it.
Yeah, he'd take the horse whip and swing right out there. Of course, all the kids knew about what he could read. He never got out of the wagon. I don't remember now what the nickname was, but he didn't like that. And neither did the school teachers, because they didn't get the devil down there bothering them.
Duane's uncle told me a story, Whitney Brookes Senior, that they knew one of the guys that was locked up overnight in that lockup, and they were pretty young guys, and so they got a half pint and went up on the roof with a string and put it down into the stove. It was in there on a string, so in the morning he was just as drunk as he was.
We put that picture in? No. All right, so.
Does anybody remember anything about the jail itself, operation in the jail? Sheriff Thompson's pretty famous.
Yeah, he was sheriff when I was a kid.
Yeah.
There was people there, went there during the winter up until, it had to be the early 50s when they closed it, didn't it? Even a little later.
In 71.
They had the gardens up on the hill. And, my father used to buy pigs from them there. They raised pigs, they had cows, probably had chickens, had good sized
Oh, yeah,
gardens.
they had chickens, but when it was Sheriff Thompson's turn to have the dinner, where they always had chicken. And they used to have a club, met halfway up jail.
Coming Club or something.
Yeah, that's club.
Buckeye lived there in that house.
Yeah, right, so Buckeye Club. That was a club, they all had different nights that they cooked. I think it was Friday night that they had a big wing day there. And the town joke was get the chickens at the jail. They go steal them over there after dinner.
I remember one time picking apples in Renzi up at the orchard, and a couple of jailbirds come up and stealing a bag of apples. So Renzi, he ran like hell. He caught up with them and stopped them before they got over a hill too far. And was getting after him for stealing the apples, and the jailbird said, "Well, Mr. Ferguson wanted an apple pie, so he sent us up here to get some more."
There never was a perimeter fence for that jail, so if they're out in the farm or whatever, they can just walk right on, as they often did. I think they closed in 71. Was the Black Panther? The last person I know of fame there was the Black Panther guy. Was there for one night. I can't think of his name. It was Alex Rackley murder case in New Haven with the Black Panthers, and I can't think of his name. It's from the West Coast.
Was that Bobby Searle?
Bobby Seale.
Yeah.
Bobby Seale, and he was there for one night, and then they realized the powers to be that, boy, the Haddam jail is not the most secure jail. If somebody comes on the outside, they want to break them out. So they transferred him to Brooklyn.
A lot of people went there for breakfast.
Yeah, myself included.
Yeah.
To the jail. I don't know. They had food down there?
Yeah, well, they had to eat. They had to eat. No, if you're working or something, the jail guards, it's not right, drop off from nursing, a sandwich or something.
They're called perk.
Yeah, it's a perk. You have to make sure you didn't have a problem with the guy in the kitchen, though.
That's from elementary school. Look at that picture. I bet some people here are in that picture. Looks like Jackie Cernan. Yeah.
It's like a Parmelee, lower right.
See?
Ronnie's up there.
Charlie, you in there somewhere?
Yeah.
Huh? Third grade.
That's when I'm at this row.
Russell versus,
Is that Russell over?
yes.
Mrs. Brooks, Miss Brooks is the principal.
You know, the one that walked on the moon.
Oh,
Yes.
John Taylor is coming to Shaw Boys. Yeah, Ellie Maynard. Greg Nelson, I think, and Stanley Burr played one year. I don't know if he's in that picture. I got a picture on him, Stanley. The brother Jim, Carl, and Charlie, they're there. Dick Williams, young Dick Williams is in there.
I don't think they had a baseball team or any kind of sports events that I remember until Russ Over showed up in that school.
Yeah.
And after he did, they built the things out back, I know that.
Jack, I'm in that picture next to Mr. Over.
You are, next to
I'm
Mr.
standing
Over?
next to Over, yeah.
that's Mrs. Brooks.
I don't think that's.
Ronnie Antolovich is there.
I don't think she's Mr. Over.
No, it is, yes. Some of the.
It's Russell, that's right there. Were you the mascot? You got different pants on too.
The older kids.
Any other questions?
Sitting. Are you?
Before we close?
So yes, we're going to wrap it up for today.
Like the
I would like to
Yeah.
thank all of our panelists for participating and sharing their wonderful memories with us. Thank you. Again, I encourage everyone just to stay, and if you have any questions you'd like to ask them personally or anybody else in the room, please do so. We, again, do have some refreshments in the back, and any stories or anything that you'd like to share with the Historical Society, we are more than happy to have you come and talk to us or share things with us. And again, thank you so much for sharing your stories today. So again, thank you for coming.
Hey, I just want to say one thing. I didn't realize until, I don't know, I stopped by the Historical Society Thursday, gave some photos. And I didn't expect to get the photos back for like a week or so. And they have a scanning machine of some sort, I don't know how it works. And some of the photos I gave her were here today, and she gave me the photos back in 5 minutes. So if you have some nice old photos you really don't want to give up, if you can just bring them by for a few minutes, you can scan them in and just give us a little note on what should be on the back of it. That'd be terrific. And the other thing I'm asking for, we never found out at the firehouse, or we don't have any photos of the old gray mare, which was a homemade fire truck made out of an old big touring car.
So Federal, what, Peachy? The old gray there? I think it was an old Federal.
Old Federal car or truck? Truck. And I can remember as a little kid going up Higgin Hill, and I could run faster than that truck would go. Anyways, the firehouse, nobody has a photo that we can find, so if anybody's got any information.
I had to get rid of it because the wood bills went up.
Well, thank you very much, and look at the photos.